Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning into the SAC Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Sisk, and today we'll be featuring the chair of the business division, James Larriviere. In today's episode, we'll be talking about Dr. J's passion for teaching economics, his relationship with students outside of the classroom, and his bench press max. Good afternoon, Dr. J.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Dr. J is our division chair of the business school here at Spring Hill, and I look up to you.
Well, thank you.
You teach economics?
I teach economics and finance classes here at Spring Hill.
Mm-hmm. What got you interested in econ?
Wow. Great question. I had a professor at University of Louisiana Lafayette. His name was Keith Watson. He's passed away, but back in the mid to late 90s, he was my economics professor at UL. And he came in and he had a presence in the class. He was very calm, insightful, smart. And over the course of a semester, he made a pretty big impact on me. So progressed with a couple more classes and had some other faculty who taught econ at UL, and it just seemed like a fit. So yeah, he really got me interested in economics.
What did you think your career path was going to be when you were an undergrad?
You know, initially I went to college with the mindset that I wanted to be an attorney. So I took some poli-sci classes and thinking law school was going to be the route. My father was actually a physician, and funny, I saw how much he worked, and I realized that, you know, he was going early in the morning, he came back late in the evening, and it just seemed like a tough life. So I wanted to find some occupation that I thought that I could have a little bit more flexibility. At the time, I thought it was going to be going through law school, but after the end of my freshman year, I realized that wasn't going to work.
Why is that?
Well, you know, it's, you know, attorneys, you know, they have to hustle. I mean, I don't think it's changed much than, 35 years ago, but it seemed to me at the time, and I was young and probably naive, but I just didn't realize that was going to be something I wanted to do long term. Mm-hmm. And so Keith Watson, getting back to him, you know, my professor, I kind of got a sense of how he was and his lifestyle, and that college professor lifestyle seemed very appealing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I ended up doing, was changing my track from poli-sci, pre-law, to economics, and just follow through with it. Yeah.
So you're an undergrad in Lafayette, and then you made the switch to Auburn?
Yes. So Keith Watson, he encouraged me to go on to a graduate program, and Melissa Waters was another one of the professors I had at UL, and they directed me. They said that they thought I would do pretty well at an institution like Auburn. The kind of professors they had there and what they emphasized on it at Auburn. So, yeah, I ended up, applying to Auburn to their PhD program, and then went into the Plains.
Is that usually how it goes for economics? You can go from undergrad to PhD, no master's?
So, there's different tracks. I went directly into the PhD program. They had some students at Auburn who were doing their master's first, but my goal was to ultimately teach at the college level. And so, the PhD program was a 5-year program. And so I thought that was going to be, a good path. And so I did it. I'm glad I did. It was, for me, it was the right path. But you have people who go to graduate school in economics with maybe not the intention to teach, maybe to get into industry. So, for me, knowing that I was going to teach and do research, I wanted to go through the PhD.
Was it ever a idea to go private sector?
Yes, it was. Private sector in the sense that after I finished my PhD, I did have the option to be employed with a private business. Also government jobs are plentiful for economists with PhDs. Whether it be working for a state government or the federal government, Federal Reserve or any type of agency like the Department of Labor. My background's labor economics originally, so I had a professor at Auburn who, encouraged me to go to work for the Department of Labor. But, uh, I got through the program expeditiously. My wife and I wanted to move on. She wanted to start her career. So once we got through Auburn, I decided not to go to the public sector and went to an institution. Went to teach at a college.
And you got your experience. You did student teaching while you're doing PhD, right?
Yeah, we the way it works in the PhD program at Auburn is after you finish your first year of classes, the PhD program, they put you into the classroom. So, I was 23 years old when I was teaching my first Econ 101 class at Auburn. There were students in there that were older than I was.
Really?
Yeah. But it was a terrifying experience. But you really learn that you have to stay ahead. I mean, you're taking your classes in the PhD program, but you're also trying to communicate this economics to freshmen and sophomores. And it's a lot of preparation in those early days.
Yeah.
You are just getting it done and just hoping that you do a class that the students enjoyed.
It's really a true test to know if you really know something, if you can teach it too. So
there was a lot of getting out of a class, and there was a question that you weren't quite clear on, and that's where you go to your professors. The professors we had at Auburn, we would go talk to them and say, hey, how do you express this? How do you clarify it? And how do you build on these concepts and give examples? And that's where I think Auburn, their PhD program, their faculty excelled, was they were very open to talking to us and communicating with their PhD student teachers. So it was a great experience. Learned a lot and trial by fire. So yeah.
That's the best way.
Yeah, taught a lot.
In all your years of teaching, has the typical student changed?
Typical student. Okay,
Yeah.
that's I think students, it depends upon where you are. So for example, a young PhD at Auburn teaching Auburn students, it's a large institution. Okay, the classes were typically 35 to 40 people. Some of them were athletes, some of them were not athletes. So that was one case. And then my first job out of the PhD program was here at Spring Hill.
Really?
In 1995, I came here to teach for 1 year. I left Auburn looking for a job. Spring Hill needed an economist to fill a 1-year visiting position. At the time, there was a professor here, Mike Johnson. He was going on sabbatical. So I took the job here at Spring Hill for that 1 year, and the first person I met when I got here was Andy Sharp. Dr. Sharp was here at the time. So I worked here at Spring Hill for that year. It was my first introduction to a liberal arts Jesuit institution, and it was fascinating. It was amazing. So the typical student at Auburn is different than the typical student here at Spring Hill in 1995. What I found, the students at Spring Hill were more engaged. It was a tighter community. They had a lot of fun with each other in the sense that it was a relatively small community. At the time, we're probably talking about 1,300 students. So there was this community amongst the students. And so when I would walk into the classroom, remember this is before cell phones and stuff like that, the students were just chatter. They're talking. It's loud. And so you had to calm them down to get the class going.
Yeah.
So that was that experience. And then I went up to Colorado and taught at a state school. Then vibe was a little bit different with the students there. And so, the typical student, I can understand the idea of a typical student. It's evolved. So it depends upon the type of institution where you're teaching. And also with changes in technology, that also changes how the students
Right.
approach the class. So it has changed a lot since the mid 90s early 90s when I started teaching economics.
Have cell phones made it easier or harder on the teacher?
Well, I guess to me, the difficulty comes when a student uses a cell phone in class when you don't want them to use it.
Yeah.
That's always a distraction. But I think overall, the technology and the cell phones have been very beneficial. I mean, I look at them as being very positive. I mean, it's helped me in my teaching. You know, I can get things done pretty quickly. But you know, I mean, anything can be a problem. But I do think overall, I would say that they've been helpful. What I think is what we've lost with the cell phones is I think that the verbal communication, the verbal interaction, the personal interaction you see students do before class and after class. I mean,
It's
now
gone.
before class, you know, you're checking your emails, you're checking your texts, looking at whatever TikTok or Snapchat. Well, before you just had each other to talk to and look at, and like I said, it was noisy when you walked into a class. Everybody's doing their thing, and so now it's crickets when I walk into a class, you know, and the students. So it's changed, but I mean,
The crickets could just be from you being a feared professor. Everyone knows you mean business.
anybody who gets to know me, they're not going to fear me. I can promise you that. But yeah, it's different. It's
Yeah.
different, but you know, it's still good.
Another thing you're known by for as your professor, I think, is the CJ7 Jeep.
Yeah,
What's the story behind that?
I love that Jeep. That well, it's a great story. So my wife Nicole, her father, her Porsche, he purchased that Jeep in 1980, probably 1985, and he had it tricked out because he had a buddy of his. I think his last name was Livingston. He was a Green Beret actually.
Wow.
He and Herb liked to do jeeping, and so they built these jeeps, and they took these jeeps to Colorado to do all the in Utah to do all the climbs and stuff like that. But eventually, when they weren't traveling with those jeeps, Nicole's sister was driving that jeep, and so here was a young, you know, young 20-something who's bouncing around this jeep around Lafayette going to work. And so after she finished with it, she got a car. So, make a long story short, the Jeep just stayed in the family. Herb drove it for a number of years and whatnot. And then it just was just sitting. And I called up Herb one day and I said, hey, I need to find a vehicle for Nicholas. I'm looking for a pickup truck. Do you have one? And he says, well, I don't have the pickup, but what about the Jeep? And that was in 2015. We ended up getting the Jeep at our house, and we've had it ever since. And you're right, it is one of those things that people notice.
Trademark.
It's a lot of fun to drive. I had a woman, I kid you not, about 2 weeks ago. I'm at the gas station at Bebo's down the hill on the way going down toward Oak Shell, down Oak Shell. And a woman asked me, she was probably mid-60s. She says, oh, I love that Jeep. Is it good, you know, should I buy one like that? And I said, no, absolutely not. It's bumpy, it's noisy, bad fuel economy. This is not a comfortable ride. I said, you may want one of the newer Jeeps, but not this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that CJ is a great vehicle. We enjoy it. In fact, I thought about driving it today, but I did not. But I typically just use that for, Nicole and I will use that just to get to and from Spring Hill. We'll take it around town, maybe to Fairhope or whatnot. But yeah,
That's awesome.
it's great. Yeah.
It's a great Sunday vehicle.
It is, absolutely.
Speaking of Miss L, how'd you get her to work here?
So in 2007, our division chair at the time wasn't me. I can't remember who the division chair was at that time, but we needed somebody to teach a marketing class. So Nicole put her application in to be an adjunct instructor here at Spring Hill. She has a master's in corporate communication, so she had that background. She's had some interesting jobs where she's, you know, done the marketing, done the PR, done the communication side. So she came on to Spring Hill in 2007 as an adjunct. And then she did that for a few years. She taught at South a couple of classes, University of Mobile as well. But But then in 2015, we had some turnover in the division. And one of the things we heard from students is that they wanted to have more help with respect to identifying internships.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ended up happening is we developed a position. The position is a situation where we needed a business division internship coordinator. And Nicole applied for that job and got that job. And so she's been here since 2015 in a full-time capacity, adjuncting, teaching her business 210. Well, she's no longer an adjunct. In 2015, she became a full-time faculty member. And so she's been doing the business internship thing for us, which is really, really key.
It is.
That's helped the division and the students so much. So that was a missing link. And so once we were able to get her in that capacity, it's really done wonders for us. And we had I think a record number of interns this past summer. I mean, I think we're up to like almost 16 interns last summer, which is unheard of prior to 2015. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was very beneficial.
I believe it. And just meeting her has really kind of reshaped my college experience, because I got that role doing marketing under her for the division's social medias, and she's the face of the division for sure.
Yeah, and it's she's very personable. She gets along great with the students, and I think by having her here since 2015, we've been able to bring on people like her, personable and good professionals, and have wanting the best for the students, but not just in the classroom, which is very important, but it's those experiential learning opportunities and those internships that really students they need and they expect. And so,
she's in the thick of it, going to networking events with students and
and getting you guys, the students, involved in those spaces with chamber events and just local community events. That's important. So yeah, it's been good.
So is it ever challenging working with your wife? What's that like?
It's
a tough question. I don't mean to trap you.
No, I think Nicole gets that question a lot, and so do I. But I think, as Nicole would say, is we're very close. Obviously, we've been married for a long time. We have a great relationship, and our professional relationship is we drive different cars to work. We don't come to work together. Yeah. I might have to be leaving early or stay late, and vice versa. But also, I think Nicole and other faculty in the Division of Business can say the same. I'm busy throughout the day. And so there are days when Nicole's office is right next door to mine, but I won't see her or even speak to her during the day at work. It's, once we go home after work, obviously there's things that might run over. We talk about things at the college, or talking about a student, or a student's having an issue or something has to happen. But I guess that's just part of the job, and we enjoy it. We're good friends, we're spouses, but we're also, I think, very good friends, and we can relate well, I think, with the students, and as a team, I think the students maybe appreciate that.
I appreciate it for sure. It's just a cool example to see too, like just a great couple that that can just do their thing.
Yeah,
simultaneously.
She has we do a lot together, but we also have our interests, and but we're partners in pretty much crime. So as they say,
she was telling me the other day that y'all kayaked across the bay. Might have been a little while back.
Yeah, we've done that.
What was that like? How many miles is it across?
So, I've done it a few times. My daughter has done it, and Nicole has done it. Going across from Dog River to Fairhope is probably about an 8-mile trek. We typically try to do it in calm conditions, but we did have a time when we went across and we got caught. It's in sailing, you get caught in irons, meaning the wind is such and the current is such that you can't make any headway. And so we got in a situation, Nicole and I and our daughter Julia, to where we got stuck for about 1 hour, pretty much in the same spot. You're just kind of just moving just like this,
If you don't paddle, do you go backwards?
You can paddle, but you just don't make much headway. And it wasn't that the wind was blowing so hard. It's just that the current is pulling the craft, the kayak and the paddleboard one way. The wind's pushing it the other way. And so you have to try to figure a way out. But yeah, I love the water. I love water sports. And so I guess I've always seemed to be always wanting to do something out of the ordinary just to kind of challenge yourself, your body, your mind. And I thought, yeah, paddling across the bay would do that. So I did it, and I got my wife and my daughter involved. My son's done it as well. And my daughter and my son essentially said, we're not doing that again.
Did you do it by yourself the first time?
No, I did not do it by myself. We've done it with buddies, some crazy buddies down the street. So, but yeah.
I've heard you've done cool experiences similar to that, outdoor stuff with students in the past that graduated.
Yeah. We have some good ones. Had a young man from Miami. He graduated, and he and I did a surf trip to Costa Rica. We also have done some surfing here on the Gulf Coast with some students. They were actually current students with us. And also Dr. Wilson, Steve Wilson, teaches theology. He's also was into surfing with us and some of our students. So, yeah, this is the time of year. Come October, November, December, that's when it's typically good to surf on the Gulf Coast. So hopefully we'll have
Where's the best spot here?
So, like any place, I mean, it depends upon the wind and the tide and the swell. So I like going to Pensacola, Opal Beach, but depending upon where the wind is coming and where the tide is, it depends. But typically it's Pensacola at the pier. It's called the Cross. There's another spot, right just to the east of Pensacola Beach that also has some good surf. So, it really depends. But surfing on the Gulf Coast is hit or miss, and so that's why you really have to kind of go elsewhere to find good waves.
Had you surfed before Costa Rica?
Yeah, I snowboarded in Colorado, and that's really where I learned. Did a lot of snowboarding when we lived in Colorado. So when we moved back down to the Gulf Coast, I just wanted to find a way I could kind of be active outdoors, on a board, and the surfboard or a paddleboard was the obvious choice. So, I took to it. It's very similar. So it's something I do enjoy. I like to surf, paddleboards. Typically, what we use to do it around here. So.
That's terrific. I hope my last year here to maybe find a partner and go across the bay. That'd be
if
crazy.
I tell you what, if you're up for it, maybe in April, that's typically the time we'll do it. And so if you're up for it, I'm gonna put a couple of life jackets on you just to make sure.
Okay, I'll need it.
No liability.
But if I'm paddling too, you gotta wear them because I don't know, I might get tired.
Yeah, we'll pull you.
Cool. My last question, and it's a fan favorite. Is what is your bench press max? Everyone wants to know.
Well, when I was 25 or 30, I would go ahead and disclose my max. But what I've learned is a bench press max does not say a whole lot about whether the person is functionally strong.
Yeah.
So
it's more calisthenics for the functionality.
Well, yeah. And there's different ways of measuring that strength, but 315 was my max back in the day. Now I would not attempt to do that because my shoulders just would not want to do that.
Yeah.
So advice to the young guys who are out there lifting weights, just have proper form. Do not overdo the bench press. It's not really a good exercise for the shoulders. And also be careful with the squats. You don't want to get injured. So I do work out a good bit, but I tell you, I couldn't tell you the last time I even maxed on the bench press. It's probably been over 10 years. So
gotcha.
I just don't do that.
Is the Spring Hill Gym your gym of choice?
It is. It's convenient.
I love it too. It leaves a little rust on you from time to time. It does.
And I will tell you, those free weights were here when I got here in 2001. They have not changed.
I love it.
It's great.
Yeah.
And so, I see friends and past, students have graduated years ago. They'll say, "How's the rec center?" I say, "We still got the same weights," and they're saying, "Yeah, it's awesome." You know? So, I love it. It's functional. It has what you need. I can walk down there, get it done, and go home. So,
Cool. That's all I've got. I really appreciate all you do for Spring Hill and the business school. And
well, I appreciate that. I'm thankful for students like yourself, engaged students. I mean, what you're doing here, it's a lot of fun. I know you've learned a lot, and this is what it's about: engaging with students, with faculty and student interaction, and so yeah, we're open to that.
I agree.
I enjoy it. I love it.
Thank you, Dr. J.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I would like to personally thank everyone who tuned into this episode of the SHC Division of Business podcast. Our aim is to give young professionals insight into their desired field or potential job of choice. If you gain anything from this, or have any compassion whatsoever, please share with someone you see fit.